Okay, finally I have time to get into doing my part 10 final wrap up and review of this project. My Firefly mod for the SKX 007. Excuse me. It's just been really busy. This time I wrote a bunch of notes on what to cover, so hopefully this will go smoother and perhaps shorter than a lot of my other videos in the past, but still be able to cover what I needed to. Anyways, let's get into it. So, how did this project start? The inspiration, ideas, motivation. Well, started with this guy here. This was my Night King mod. This is the Mark III version because it's gone through 3 iterations since its initial build back about 1 year ago from the date of this original posting, which would be probably mid-January 2019. So this got finished last year, 2018, I think late January, maybe February, but didn't officially get finished till almost March because I had this crown took forever to get from 2359 in the UK, but in the end this is what I wanted because it was the right size. It wasn't stick out too much. It's like stock. It has the nice S that matches the Seiko S style, unlike say the Sarbs 059 sign crowned, which looks like I don't know, some people call it a snake. It looks very sloppy. It doesn't have like these serif ends, and it looks irregular, and there's no S that looks like that I'm aware of that looks like any Seiko S. So I don't know why they decided to make it like that. And you can find, I believe, Dagaz, are they the one, or is it Crystal Times? One of those two, or maybe both, are making similar Sarbs zeros. I almost think, I'm pretty sure it's Crystal Times. Anyways, they're making something that looks like that Sarb 059, which I do not like. It does the job, but this looks better because it looks like a Seiko S, not a weird irregular shaped thing. Like one end is serif and the other end is not, and it's kind of rounded or something. It just didn't look right to me. But I digress. So so this was my first one, and after I got this bezel, this is from a Sarb 059. I really like the look of it. Very technical looking. It's just brushed with the black fill, and it's bi-directional. And that's the thing that got to me. My initial inspiration was when I had this on the wrist or just playing with this bezel. And at times, like, yes, it's smooth, yet there's just enough friction. You're not gonna, I don't care what people say about bidirectional bezels, especially if they don't click. They're not unidirectional for dive time purposes. This is not gonna shift on you. You really have to give like direct pressure. I'm really pushing hard on this to do it. I think you're gonna feel whatever is up against you pushing along this, really, it's a small area, and shifting it. You really have to grip both effectively and make an intentional move to really get it to really knock out of place. I don't know, most often this, some things go across it, it's gonna just slip right through it. If it's pushing that much constant pressure on your wrist like this, I think you better be awake, otherwise you're probably dead or unconscious for some reason if you don't feel that. Anyway, so it's smooth. It's got so it's silent too, and that's the kicker, is that there's no clicking. It's super silent and smooth, and you have dive timing purposes, or it doesn't have to be dive. It can be any kind of timing purposes, and you have the inner compass, so that you can use the sun to align the watch and then set the bezel accordingly, and you'll get your bearings on how to navigate if you don't have GPS or some sort of modern tracking device that can, get you in the right direction. This is like last resort, old school, whatever you want to call it, but it works. And so I was thinking, this is because it's silent and it's got at least these two features. This would be perfect for a field watch. And I was aware that they have a black version of this, which is the SARB 061, and I think the 063 is the same bezel, but the 61 has the black bezel but with a stainless steel body, and the 63 still should have the same one, but it's all black, and it's an even more limited edition, and I think that came with like a special case and even some sort of combat knife or something. It was pretty cool. Very, 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 very hard to find that, and if you can, I'm sure it's damn expensive. But anyways, so that was my thinking. That would be cool to use in a field watch. I could, of course, keep it silver, but I was thinking, for some reason, spec ops, tactical, something covert mission, or just military or something of that nature. And thus, I was thinking it should be all black. And I gotta admit, the only other black SKX that I was aware of was the one that TGV from the Urban Gentry did for himself. He originally, I believe, did one in the SKX 007, and then more, it's not recent now, but the last one he did was he sold the larger one, and got the SKX 013, I believe, the 38 millimeter size case, and did something similar that's all black, Cerakoted, very tactical looking, and that kind of got me thinking, that's pretty cool. You don't see many black, especially all black SKX cases. They just really don't make them, except for the exception of the SARB 063, as far as I know. It's the only all black one, and that's a field watch version too. So anyways, the SARB 6, all those SARBs I was talking about are basically like are Alpinist. That's what they're marketed and labeled as, actually, on the back. It has a special case back that says Alpinist, and it's a field version of the SKX. So, okay, I was going to go and use this bezel, and then I started thinking, okay, I want it black, so I'll probably get it PVD or most likely Cerakoted, which I did. And I was thinking, I was always wondering if, I guess before I thought about this, or maybe in conjunction, but there's all sorts of AR coatings, blue, green, purple, to give that kind of color off. And I traditionally use blue. I like what that looks like. This blue is cool. But I always wonder, why don't they make a red one? I'm thinking, I don't have my rifle scope, but I'm thinking the ruby coating that I believe is considered an anti-reflective coating on the front of like a lot of tactical scopes is red. Comes out really strong red, actually. And I was like, that would be pretty cool. And actually, I've seen some other watches from 8 years ago, actually from Invicta or something, that utilize something similar, some either red or iridescent coating, but something that's really cool and unusual. But I was like, why don't they ever do it? And I wanted to email and ask like Crystal Times or Dagaz or somebody or Yoboki's or something. Why, like, can you make something like that in red AR? But eventually, OSC, 1 second closer, I believe, are the first ones who made one with the red AR, and you'll probably catch it here. You can see it's got a reddish tone. If I can hit, depending on the lighting, it really shows up red pretty good. And actually, to my naked eyes, I see it stronger than it's coming through in the camera. Anyways, so I figure if I can, so they have one, and actually Crystal Times I think came out one afterwards, but OSC has two versions, a ruby red and a Ori Flame, which I couldn't tell the difference. They look red to me, but I think the Ori Flame is maybe slightly more on the orange side. I don't know, but I went with the ruby red, and I was thinking, okay, that'd be cool. A red AR against a black PVD watch. That's it for the field watch. That's the case. So I'm going to do that, on the outside. And inside, okay, it's going to have to be something with a 24-hour scale and Arabic numerals, make it look very field-like. And I started piecing these things, searching online at different sources, DLW, Yaboki's. Those are the main ones that have the most parts. Did I say DLW? Dagans? Yeah. And maybe even just on eBay, some people might have something, but ultimately I went with DLW. And I was thinking, okay, let's go with field style hands, something sword or pointer-like. I didn't want to dive watch hands. Keep it more field-like, and I wanted the pip at the end, and I always imagined it'd probably be either a round one or actually a square one. I really thought this looked right for something like this for some reason. And I just started imagining, okay, that would be cool look. Probably do a sign crown, since I noticed, I see that people are making sign crowns, and this one's also from DLW, and it has got the proper S. But I filled this in custom, as you may know from my other videos on this build, and how and what I did to customize a lot of this. And that was going to be it, that would be my field wife. And I always imagined in my head, and I wanted to do it for a while, but I was like, I don't really want to spend the money. I was kind of gravitating away from 42 actually there's almost 43 millimeter case sizes, although these, Seiko divers all fit very well. But eventually I had to just scratch that curiosity. Like, I had this whole thing planned out in my head already, and I was going to follow through and think about where can I source the right parts to give it the look, and then I photoshopped it, which I might have shown in the first video. If not, I'll probably flash something throughout this video. And then it's pretty cool. And then I'm thinking, that red and black, red, crystal, and black. And I thought about a Sideshow collectible toy. They're really cool, very detailed 12-inch action figures. They make all sorts of stuff, like for Star Wars and like G.I. Joe and stuff, and military, I don't know, lots of different things, Iron Man. And they did like a reinterpretation of the classic 80s G.I. Joe characters, and one of them was Firefly, which was on the Cobra side, the bad guys, but he was always very cool, gray kind of camo, and baklava, and very cool, like stealthy, tactical, sneaky guy. But they revamped him in the Sideshow one, and I'll try to show a video or image of it here again. And remember, I was going to get that back when I was collecting toys more, but I never did. I kind of stopped and I had to sell some. But anyways, and I remember that version was really cool too, the Sideshow, because he had on a pair of like these red goggles, and he was all grayed and blacked out and stuff, and it was a very cool look. And as you'll see, or I've already shown by now, overlaying the image somewhere here. So that's just my inspiration, is just to call it the Firefly mod, because of that character, the tones of black, stealthy, gray, field watch. I don't know, the whole thing just sounded like a cool name, and the concept of tying it in with, one of my beloved 80s comic toys and cartoon series, growing up next to, pretty much in conjunction with Transformers and a bunch of other stuff. But those, that was definitely one of the main ones, and that was it. So then I sourced the parts. I'm not going to go into it in this video, because I think I talked about in part 1 already where everything came from, and I was just going to list it again in the description below, where I got every part, the name of them, part numbers, whatever I can provide, the cost for each one, and then you get in the total, so you get an idea of what something like this costs roughly. So I'm not going to get into that, but everything is basically customized from the ground up. I mean, because I didn't even buy a whole watch. I was able to get an original SKX case and case back to Cerakote and house everything into it and drop everything in. And that gets me to the first part of problems. I mean, if you've followed me in at least in some part, like, you know, that I've already photoshopped this, and especially I did like a whole G.I. Joe kind of inspired map of operations of what to do, on what I need to get, and how I'm going to modify the parts, and they're all going to form together. I'll try to flash a picture of it somewhere here. I'll talk over it, and all these parts, you know, throughout this island. This is a real G.I. Joe promotion kind of game thing that you solve these puzzles, and then you write it down and you mail it, and you get a special offer. And I can't remember what that special offer was. Probably you know, special mail-in character, if I'm not mistaken. But you know, a toy action figure that you can't normally buy. You know, the special mail order things. But anyways, and I reworked it so that it kind of was for this watch. So I mapped it all out, and you know, I'm not new to modding. I wouldn't say I'm a super expert, but I think I've had an experience. If you've seen other things I've done in the past, yeah, I think, you know, I was rather prepared, and you know, obviously I drew out everything, thought it out, but I still had problems, and almost every conceivable problem that could have happened with, you know, each stage, I guess, of this almost did happen for the most part. So this wasn't a problem, but sometimes sourcing parts and making sure they all arrive in timely manner, and they're actually the correct parts that I ordered. Sometimes, and who knows, they may have grabbed the wrong, you know, item and shipped the wrong thing to me, and then I gotta go through the hassle of, I might have gone through the hassle of trying to, you know, return, exchange it, and all that, and you know, just working that out if that didn't happen. But that's probably one of the most stressful parts about a mod for me. Is after you source it and you purchase it, it's the waiting of getting those parts in, and making, you know, all the tracking if they have it, and making sure they just all arrive and as expected. Yeah. Did the color balance just change on me? Oh, okay. Anyways, let's see here. Yeah, but to jump back to the case, I was originally thinking if I could save some money, go with the Heimdallr, Heimdallr, I think. They're like I think they're in Chinese, or some sort of company that does a lot of homage watches, like very close. They do the MM300s, tunas, very cool stuff, turtles, you know, 62 Mosses, pretty much all the cool models. They have some version of it that they copied, essentially, this with the sometimes they call them Sharkies because there's like a shark design on there. But yeah, so they had a black SKX homage, you know, looks just like a SKX, but just all blacked out in PVD already, and with a bracelet. And it has sapphire crystal and NH36 movement in there. The dial was a little different, you know, they did their own thing with that, but I think the hands were essentially still the same SKX hands, and it was pretty cool. They even had like a white or black, probably white. Maybe it's black. I don't remember. I'll try to flash the picture of it. But the main thing was they had a Chinese day wheel that was for 3:45, but you know, basically a 4 o'clock position, because I cannot find a Chinese day wheel. It was just easier to read for me, being Chinese then, and the Japanese kanji one just doesn't make sense to me. Why this character is for? I guess this is for Friday. Yeah, Friday. Yeah. Anyways, so but yeah, I prefer that. And usually the only Chinese day wheel I can get aftermarket, or not aftermarket, but outside by themselves, you know, usually through eBay or something. They're all orientated for 3 o'clock. It's kind of sucks. I mean, the only thing I could actually no, I can't even change it. It's all set. So there's a lot of bonuses to that watch. You know, I wouldn't have to get Cerakoted. I get a bracelet that matched, that's in PVD, black PVD, which I always try to get a matching bracelet, but it already has a sapphire crystal, so, you know, but then, you know, I would want this was one of the main features I wanted, was keeping that red AR crystal and using this bezel as well. But it would have been cool because they had already blue BGW9 like dial and I think hands too, but I wasn't going to be using those anyway. So, but for about 130, 135 for all that, that could have saved me a lot of pieces, you know, by themselves, because, you know, SKX is still, a whole watch costs about 200, and just these parts alone, where I ended up getting a case and case back, was just over 100, so about $30 more or so just to get the whole watch. If it would have worked, would have been better. But, and I don't care if it's not a genuine Seiko case, because I'm going to rework everything anyways with pretty much all, it will look like Seiko parts, and for the most part it is. Anyways, my concern was there's no confirmation by anyone, even by the people selling it, that whether areas of tight tolerances such as the crystal and the bezel, maybe the crown and the case back, well, actually I'm not too worried about that, but mainly the bezel. If I'm going to fit another bezel on there, that's a very specific fit, especially for these SARB 059061 bezels. It's one of the tightest fitting ones. I thought I was going to crack the crystal because I put this in first and put it on because it was so tight. But I did manage to slip like a piece of paper in between just to test it when I was, as you can, maybe I showed it in one of the other parts. And there was actually a gap there, so I wasn't touching the crystal, but it looks so close. So yeah, that was critical, as well as the crystal itself. Will accept, you know, aftermarket ones. The gaskets, I don't know. Maybe those are just slightly off on those as well. So those are unknown factors where I didn't want to gamble, because if I got it and it didn't fit, then I'd be kind of out 130 something for that watch. I could probably sell it for something, but, you know, again, a hassle. And additionally, yeah, that was the main thing. And what if I did try to install it, and then, like, especially the bezel, and I somehow force it on there, but it's not really, you know, the right fitting, and then maybe it gets stuck or jammed on there, then I'll be out as much as this bezel, which is not cheap. This was probably over $100 by itself. Yes, pricey, but it's genuine Seiko, and it's one of the lowest profile bezels you can get, and I just really like the details. There's nothing quite like it that you can get aftermarket. It's all one piece, and you still got Lumibright in there, so, you know, it's a good bezel, and that's why it costs so much. But anyways, those are the two main things I needed to work. So anyways, I didn't want to take that chance, so I got an original SKX case just to be sure it should work with all the OEM and aftermarket parts, because, you know, if it's genuine, it should, because it's done so in the past for me for the other mods I did. But even with that concern, I still ran into issues with those areas, as you saw from my other videos probably, and I'll mention that here. First, pretty much in order, Cerakoting the case. Once I got all the parts in, I knew that this case had to go to get started, because eventually everything's got to drop into here, so I want to get Cerakoted. And I had talked to the guy. It's JEC Cerakote firearm Cerakoting in Diamond Heights. It's about 45 minutes or so, 50 minutes away from where I live, depending on the traffic. But it's the closest one that I can visit and do it, because everywhere else, one, they charge like an arm and a leg sort of to get something Cerakoted, even PVD, and the turnaround time is ridiculous. Like, it would be several weeks to several months. I'm not gonna deal with that, and especially paying like well over $100. And they did it for me for about $35, I think, in the end, for Cerakote the case and the case back. So that was way to go. But he just, when I was about to wanted to take it in a call to make sure he was available, he's just started his vacation, 3 weeks, so that set me back 3 weeks, just to wait for him to get back so I can drop this off and get this done. So that was already a hitch. And then my other concern was whether, and then eventually I waited and I handed it to him and got it done. And you saw the video on that. But also you note that one of my fear was, okay, getting Cerakoting it, making sure it wasn't too thick, and especially in the bezel area, because it's so tight in there. And so make sure he understands how to mask off where it needs to be masked off without doing too much. Make sure the coating coverage is good, and for the most part it was. But test fitting some pieces, there were some underspray, I guess, in some area spots that he overmasked, or that for some reason didn't cover all the way to where I needed to. But it's so close in there you couldn't tell probably. But I ended up just touching it up with some not that black paint, and it matched fine. You can't even tell. Yeah, so I had to just touch up a few parts. But so that was yeah, waiting for this to get done, and then my fear of it not getting the 100% complete coverage kind of happened, but I fixed it. So you'll find that there's a lot of worst case scenarios, I guess, in me fixing it. The movement, the date disc. Originally I salvaged the one from my inverse Pepsi mod, which had a black date disc and a white, the stock white date disc. And since I wanted to make this all black in here, keep it stealthier this time, instead of having a big bar of white here, or even partial, because it just doesn't make sense. I had to replace that with a black one, so I got a new date disc in black. So I thought it was a pretty straightforward thing, but in the end there was, as you saw in my other videos, probably that there was some issues. Initially, after I installed it, something didn't, well, some of the platings were kind of shifted, and maybe some components that don't lock down necessarily got knocked out. So I thought I put it back, but then after I did it, I tested winding to try to set it. It didn't really turn right. So I went back in and I thought I fixed it. But then later on, when I was coming back to this to drop in maybe the hands and whatever else to finish off the movement before putting it into the case, I realized that advancing it, the date, or setting the time. Once I pass midnight, I usually check that to make sure I don't set the date between 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. But as I was doing that, as I was looking at the date turnover, the day would not. And yeah, and this would actually turn over 2 or 3 times within 24 hours, which was not right. Anyways, I got back into it, and I finally figured out what was wrong, and I worked it all out. But again, worst case scenario, it's not as simple as it seems to just swap out a day or date disc. And I did have to go in and fix some things. There was some I go into in the other video, but anyways, yeah, so that didn't turn out. The dial, I think, is next here. Yeah, I wanted to, one of my plans was to get rid of the 5 emblem, and because I was holding with these little feet or prongs through the dial, so I pushed it out from the back, but I wanted to put like a little military broad arrow in that spot instead. I would have figured out a way to creatively put one in and cover up the holes that could potentially be there from the prongs. But I was careful to push out slowly just to see, what exactly is going on underneath that emblem, because, I don't know, maybe it's not painted, maybe it's something's just wears uneven, so it'll show like a shadow or some impression left by the emblem there. After I remove it, then it kind of would render that removal kind of pointless, because it would look kind of bad. And so I was pushing out, the paint was kind of cracking around the holes that went through. And so I was pushing it out, and I was like, crap, I can't use that, I can't recolor it and stuff and patch it up or anything. It's already kind of messed up, especially if I pushed it completely off. So I just said, screw it. So I pushed it back in, set it, and that was pretty much it. I was done messing with that. So I went back to, I guess this originally plan A was to keep the 5 and just paint it instead of removing it and putting a different symbol like the broad arrow. But so I went back and then painted it. I wanted just to subdue it because it was all silver in the negative areas in the 5. Again, as you'll see in one of my other previous videos, part 2 or 3, I forget. Anyways, what I used first kind of filled in and did the job, but it still left something kind of blotchy and wasn't matte black across all that negative space around the 5 and the shield, I guess, around it, in any of that negative space. So I went back in basically and filled in with matte black, proper matte black, and cleaned it up, and there we go. So that was another technical issue that I can't do what I originally really wanted to do. So I have to go back and work it out to something I can live with, and that's not bad. Hands were probably the only thing that were okay. Again, they originally had green loom, but I wanted to go blue. Yeah, fun. I don't think that loom was particularly strong, and I just like blue loom, so I already made that decision a while back. So in the video, I take out the old and I put in the new, and the mixture and everything went in smoothly, and actually matches that kind of that off-white kind of tone. It's like a very light gray or greenish type of thing going on there in the numerals, and whatever else is supposed to be white in the dial, especially the loom areas, but which would be the Arabic numbers only. So that worked out. I didn't have any hitch, and I painted the tips yellow, blue, red. They're color coded for a reason, and I explained that in the video when I did that. This red is most important. That's why it's the seconds hand. It's very critical because you'll be measuring by the seconds. Next would be minutes, because that's the next more fine unit of time. That's very specific as well. And hour is pretty general, so that's why it's blue. It's not as critical that and I just like adding that splash of primary colors, just enough just to give a little pop. And that was the whole thing about this too. I did not want this to be completely, I forgot to mention that, and I did mention that in one of the previous videos, but did not want this to be a completely stealthy, dark monochromatic tone where it's not supposed to draw attention to itself. There is some kind of cool factor to that, being so stealthy, but by its nature, you don't want to attract any attention to it. Then it's not gonna be that exciting. It's gonna kind of drown out and it's supposed to disappear. And I didn't want that. I wanted to have enough of the tactical look and stuff without actually going all the way there. I wanted some pop. So, and the color-coded hand tips. Hopefully I can continue my video here. I think I'm running out of space, but I'll try to move on. If I get cut off, I will try to continue. So that was actually the only thing that went smoothly. The crown was okay, actually, filling in the loom in there, but the crown stem, which I already had something from previous, I thought it was pre-cut. It should have just worked, but for some reason they made this crown a little bit different. I kind of explained it in one of the previous videos, and so basically I had to retrim it. So that technically didn't go as planned as well, and I had to make an adjustment. But eventually I did. I had like a spare uncut one, and yeah, so I replaced that. Okay, let me stop this video. I think okay. Hopefully I can finish this up before I run out of space again. My phone. Crown. So the crown, yeah, this crown stem I had to adjust. Now when I was finally trying to get to the part of installing the crystal and bezel, and also the chapter ring. Chapter ring was fine, it's plain gunmetal. That went in pretty much okay. I ended up just gluing it down just to make sure it didn't shift for any reason, any looseness. Not permanent, but good enough. But I had a brand new gasket because I didn't have one, because I didn't have like a full watch that I disassembled and could reuse some of the parts. and the OC crystal, and this, and a new bezel gasket for this bezel. And man, that was a pain in the ass. This would not go in straight. I know I got the cheapy crystal press, and usually it still works. You know, I just work it down and rotate it so that eventually it lays as flat as possible, but it just did not want to. And I think I had such a hard time was because probably my theory is when my first time using OSC crystals, but they might be a little bit larger than crystal tines, which I usually use. So maybe that's why it's such a tighter fit. That and or the brand new bezel, crystal gasket I'm using is so new and stiff, and maybe even, you know, not having been depressed or thinned out. It's, you know, it's fullness, thickness. Usually I reuse the crystal gasket from already assembled SKX, so it's probably been, you know, worked, and that's why most of the time when I do that, it just, the new crystal just goes in with that, no problem. But not this time. So just trying to get it to lay as straight and even as possible onto this was a pain in the ass. That took like, I swear, well, I think 2 to 3 hours somehow just working it, because, you know, you have to. I think I was getting there, and then all of a sudden when you guess you're getting close, then it starts going down one side more. It was very frustrating, but eventually I got it. It's not 100% perfect, but it's a lot closer than the many earlier attempts, and it definitely passes now. And so yeah, that's good. I found it. But then the SARB 061 bezel, I wanted to make sure, okay, it cleared that, and it did, but it's very tight, very low tight. You know, it's very hard to get that out. I mean, it's just so tight in between the bezel and the case. But this was a pain in the butt to put on too. It was really surprisingly tighter than I imagined it being on the previous silver version I did. Maybe because it's probably coated too. I don't know. It should have just went on, but it did not. It felt like I had to put extra force to really get it in there. And when I finally did, it was super stiff. I gripped the heck out of this and try to turn it, and, you know, turn the whole case with it, and you barely get a degree off just from like a lot of effort trying to turn it. I was like, oh my god, this is not going to be good or practical. And I purposely mounted it aligned just in case maybe it gets stuck, or otherwise I can't use or rotate it the way I want. At least it'll be aligned in position. But yeah, lucky that didn't go badly that way. And what I usually do is, I think the problem was, did I lubricate the gasket? I think I might have the best gasket with silicone grease, which is wrong, because that stuff is meant for water sealing, like around the crown area and case back, and it's really sticky. What I ended up doing afterwards, I think obviously I didn't pop it off to clean it off, but I usually get some silicone spray, like lubricant, and spray it into here and along the outside edge, and let it really seep in and penetrate, and then just start working that bezel, trying to turn it, and eventually more of it gets in there, and it loosens up and loosens up and loosens up. You just keep, you know, keep that process, repeat that process until I got it nice and smooth, you know, just enough resistance, like my previous one. This is where I want to be, but before I couldn't even do that. It's like, there. That's the best I could do with how stiff it was originally. So yeah, stiff. So anyways, and I was worried that some reason, well, the OSC's crystal, for some reason that the bezel or something is too much, and maybe inside here is actually closer, it may actually touch the crystal somehow. If I push too hard, maybe it might crack it, or just get them stuck with each other. I don't know. That didn't happen, but it certainly felt like it could at points, and both of these took a while to work on here. So again, worst case scenario. And that's pretty much it on that. And I think after I got everything in there, when I started testing it, I realized that's when I realized that when I thought I fixed the date, it wasn't completely fixed, and the day wasn't turning over, and advancing the time to change the date to, just to see after a certain point it would flip once, and then another point it would flip 2 times, which should have been, that 2 double flip should have been for the date, because there's 2 languages. It'll do one language and then go back to the one that you originally kind of aligned or set it for, either Kanji in this case or English. But again, I discussed what I did at the end of one of the later videos, where I finally put this together and what I had to do to make sure everything was functioning correctly. So yeah, as you can see, almost every conceivable part had a technical issue that took longer than expected, and yeah, it really made me want to cry a number of times, and I wanted to almost give up, or at least say to myself, never again, I'm done after this, of modding watches. But when you get that mod bug, you kind of have to scratch it, and this is what that was about. And this was the easy part. It's just after the case was done, good to go, just putting on the strap option, and I chose this gray one, this gray NATO with black PVD. I think it looks good. It matches the Firefly theme because he's black and got the red crystal, or the lens for his goggles, I guess, and he has a bit of gray in it too. I mean, a gray camel would have worked too, but I thought this was pretty cool. And I have a couple options. This is pretty much a strap monster, but I have a black Condora one that I've also shown on the Facebook groups and whatnot, which look good too. It's very rugged looking, and it's all blacked out even more, so it keeps it even more stealthier. So, and do I have anything else? Oh, you can put this on pretty much anything. And having these little bits of color actually allows it to, pair up with other colors you may not have thought necessarily worked, even though this is just a black PVD watch. But I think having the accent colors kind of allows even more liberty to mix up some other colors into this if you wanted to. So let me just give you a quick shot of the loom. Hopefully this will show up. Crown. Oh, you can see that. Very cool. That turned out really nice. And the bezel and the dial is all original SKX Lumabrite. So it'll be a good strong green. And the hands are custom painted blue with the, that. So it's got that mix. And I think that looks pretty damn cool. Let's make sure this is right. And even Lumabrite's notoriously good. This $20 loom paint kit, as I've shown in some other videos, is really, really surprisingly good. It lasts pretty much just as long, and in some cases maybe even slightly longer than Lumabrite, which is pretty amazing. But yeah, looks so cool at night. Even when it's just dim enough where you can pick it up after, like, say, walking outside and going into the garage, where it's a little bit darker and that's just freshly charged, and you just get that glow, even though you can see the watch too. It's super cool. Oh, let me just show off the back real quick. I probably showed it in the other videos, but you can see how it's black Cerakoted as well. Yeah. I had a little mishap with a cheap case back remover tool, but overall it's holding up fine. It's basically a tool watch anyway. It's gonna go through some banging, and this is in the back, and there's no display case anyway, so chances are you're not gonna give a crap about seeing the case back anyways much. but I thought it was good to just try to match it black with the case just to complete the look. Well, it probably would have worked fine with the stock silver, but yeah, I think that's better. And besides, it really didn't cost me extra to have the case back done as well, so it just made sense to do it. So in the end, was it worth it with all that stuff, the problems? Yeah, I like the results. It came up pretty much as I imagined. As if I haven't shown it earlier in this video, you've probably seen it on my Facebook groups where I posted stuff about this, especially early on. I did some Photoshop mock-ups and everything, you know. It pretty much turned out exactly more or less the way I wanted. I wore this for at least a week or two, pretty straight, at least a week. The movement had been regulated, but since I had been sitting around for a while, it needed readjustment, and so I had basically spent a week straight just regulating this to my wearing habits, and which should work out for anyone else. But this was pretty much on wrist daily, even when I was sleeping, and now it's really good at, I think, no more than +2 to -1 second a day. It really held, like, barely, you know, deviate from the original set synchronized time, minute or seconds even. Yeah, it's really good. This is, I don't care what people say about cost and whatnot. Of course, that's great, and Swiss has got a lot of hype, and I think that there is that. But, you know, a solid Seiko movement, regulate it right, provided there isn't any major defects or issues during production, can run just as good, if not better, in my opinion, and didn't cost nearly as much to have a good solid watch. And you know, anything goes wrong, it's, you can just, you don't even need to service it, you know. It's, what is it, like $35 or so? I mean, I forget. It wasn't that much. I'm pretty sure a new NH36 movement is like less than $36, at least 50, maybe even less than $40. And so it's not even worth bringing into a watchmaker to have service or whatever. Just, if you have the knowledge, especially if you built the watch, just freaking swap out the movement, you know. Take out, you know, you have to go through the hassle of taking out the parts and then reinstalling them, but hey, you get a brand new movement, it'll probably last you a long time. If not, the original one should do that anyways, because these are generally built pretty damn good to last at least 10 years, if not decades. Yeah. I was gonna go off on something else here. Yeah, I think this is super cool. It's just, oh, the black PVD on this. It's nice. I like the matte finish. It's actually called black graphite, I believe. But it's basically matte black. But the only thing about this type of finish is it's almost bead blasted, I suppose, you know, or satin, or, you know, it's like a, you know, very matte color. There's no brushing anymore. So, unfortunately, because of that, I like to have bracelet options, but most you'll find that are black PVD coated won't exactly match that, because I think they usually have a brushed, or even maybe possibly a bit of a polished sides to it too, to the bracelets. As far as I know, the ones from Watch Gecko and Strap Code, yeah. So it really, if I wanted to, I could probably put it on, but I don't think it'll match. It just have this odd finish. I don't know, maybe. I mean, this is black PVD, but it's still relatively matte, and I guess this bezel probably is too. And it's got a bit of a gloss to it. So it might kind of work with the shine that might be off of a black PVD bracelet that's kind of brushed, maybe even possibly polished to some degree. I don't know. We'll see. Because actually I'm planning to sell this pretty soon after I finish this video. I love this watch. It's really cool. It came out exactly how I expected, and I think a lot of people will appreciate the work that went into this, and just overall vision and look and design that are put together here. It's I think it all works really well. Not much to complain about. Sorry about the fingerprints. I should have a cleaning cloth. Oh, another note. You know, it's like some people say, "Oh yeah, you have matte black, but then you have this shiny bezel." But you know, when you actually look at it in person, it doesn't stand out that much, if at all. And I kind of thought about balancing it out across the watch by adding some bit of shiny black elements, and thus the hands are like that kind of color too, or finish. You know, it's a shiny black basically, which serves twofold. One, to give some tie-in back into the watch, like how this is done, so it doesn't look so separate perhaps as it would if this was, you could get these maybe in matte black as well. And additionally, if it was matte black and the dial was matte black, it would kind of get lost more. So I think this allows you to keep it black, but then have just enough pop with the shinier finish, I guess. You know, it's black. You know, it doesn't kind of blend into the background as much. So there is some definition or delineation, whatever you want to call it, between the hands being shiny black versus the matte black dial. And this is an SKX 809, I believe. It does look nothing like an SKX, which that can be the case sometimes. I think some of the old early monster references started with an SKX as well, and they really don't look much like an SKX. But anyways, this dial is supposed to be matte black, but when you really look at it, it almost looks like a matte gray, dark gray, which is cool. I don't need it to be completely 100% black, but I just wanted to make that note. And yeah, I think overall this came out great. Was it worth it? Yeah. I will probably miss this, but I have enjoyed this, and I will continue to do so until it sells. This may be even possibly more popular than this one, which I was selling, but I took it off recently because I'm going to mod it again, just do a little switch up to freshen it up, and perhaps I think it will be a better look and even more versatile in some ways. And you'll probably see that coming up really soon. It should happen in about 2-3 days at most from the time this was originally recorded, so sometime early next week once I get the part in, and or parts rather, and you'll see there will be this will transition from Mark III right now to a Night King Mark IV. But yeah, anyone interested in this, if it's still available by the time you end up watching this, I'm gonna sell it with everything you see here, but the strap option will be different. I'm gonna keep this, and I'm gonna sell it with the black Condora with black PVD buckle. Yeah, that will be a set. And I'm hoping to ask and hopefully get 600 for something like this. I think the total number of parts and the effort put into it and everything, and the fact that it's running so damn good too, having been regulated, all of it, uniqueness and everything, I think it's fair. But the price is negotiable, but don't insult me with a really low ball offer, because I don't know, it's insulting. And you know, it's just not a serious offer. If you're like saying, oh, okay, how about 300? How about maybe 4? So yeah, SKXs in general are pretty inexpensive at 200, but come on, the parts themselves and the further customization and the time and labor put into putting it all together and making sure it's a really good and well put together watch that runs well and all that. The whole bit, you know, that all adds up to something. And this watch is relatively new, I think it's only been, when did I finish this? This is mid-January 2019, and I finished this just before New Year's, sometime after Christmas of December 2018. So yeah, that's just under a month old. I've only had time to just get back to doing this video finally. But yeah, let me know if you're interested. They're cool with 600, awesome. If you would like to go a little bit lower, I might be able to, but not by much. We can talk about it. I'm not going to say any more about that. But yeah, just refrain from either giving me an insultingly low offer, or just telling me that I'm crazy for asking what I'm asking, because, you know, F you, because it costs what it costs. So don't tell me otherwise. And if you don't like it, don't have to buy it. But anyone that likes this, serious, appreciates the craftsmanship and effort and attention to detail and the thoughtfulness put into this, you know, cool. I think you'll can relate and think that, okay, you know, not what I'm asking for isn't too crazy, and you know, it's a good base if you ever wanted to add something to maybe make it more your own. But I think it's pretty darn perfect the way it is right now. This is not off, it's just turning over after midnight, you know, the slow turnover that it does. But yeah, okay, this video's these notes did not help to make it any shorter. But anyways, I'm gonna cut it here so I can edit and put this video up ASAP, and move on to my next project and or review of some sorts. Probably gonna get back to this one soon. Someday I would like to talk about my dad's Rolex and his Vacheron, which are mine now since it passed. Should be some good stories there. This is another recent acquisition, and has its plus and minuses, but yeah, I'm gonna get into that when I get into that. So a number of things coming up, and maybe some things that aren't here. I still need to do one for my flighty, the SNA 411 Flightmaster. That's going to be sold pretty soon too. That's a really cool watch, but that other one kind of took the place of the aviation chronograph type of thing. Yeah, I mean, the Flighty is a great watch, but I will have to sell it to make room, because I'm trying to keep my collection very concise and not too big, so I can have time to wear each one with good time and build memories, and yeah, just wear them instead of thinning out my attention and appreciation for my watches. Like, you know, sometimes you don't get back to certain watches for a long time, and I don't know, it's good to have, but I figure, you know, it's even better if you can actually wear them more often. And if you have too many, you can't do that. So I don't know, that's my thinking right now. And yeah, thanks for watching. Follow me on these ridiculously long videos, but I hope they're all educational, maybe somewhat entertaining. If not, just, you know, give you some good references on how to do something like this yourself, what it takes, and even the ups and downs like I particularly had with this one, and how I dealt with them in the other videos to make it all finally work out. Yeah, that's it. Have a good one. I'll see you in the next. Laters.